Welcome to the Quantum Business Queen podcast. This is where business stops being linear and starts being alchemical. This is a space where 3D strategy meets 4D frequency, where identity, energetics, and precision converge, and where 5D quantum creation becomes something you don't just learn, you fully embody. Season 1 reached over 15,000 downloads, and if you were a part of that journey, you already know this isn't just surface level business talk. This is about collapsing timelines, upgrading your self-concept, and building a business that responds to who you're becoming, not just what you're doing. Season 2 goes even deeper, more truth, more edge, more integration, less hustle, less distortion, and less playing small. So if you're ready to scale without self-betrayal, lead without dilution, let your business become a living extension of your frequency, you are in the right place. Welcome to this episode of the Quantum Business Queen podcast. We're going to dive straight in and talk about something super, super potent, which was inspired by a client session I had today, actually. And I want to speak about memories versus something I call memories of the future. Sorry, dreams versus memories of the future. And so oftentimes when we think about a vision or what we want to become or what we're creating, we have this idea in our head. We refer to it as a vision. And I think we associate that vision to being something our mind is making up. And I want to flip a paradigm around that today and actually tell you what is really happening. Because if we understood how powerful we are, if we understood what our minds are actually doing, it's not just making something up out of thin air, something that's a fantasy or something that isn't real. It's our mind accessing realities that are already there. And if we understood what these realities mean and how we get to calibrate to them, we could then know the nature of who we actually are as deliberate creators. And of course, I'm going to bring Alari through and get her perspective on all of this. And in fact, this session was inspired by a conversation I had with Alari, and she refers to visions as memories of the future. And I love that because we know our past is real, and the way we are able to access our past is through a memory, and that memory gives us information about what we experienced, right? And the future is the same. If we took linearity out of time, our future is the same. Our future is just a memory of something that is already done. And if we understood that our realities, things we want to experience, not a distance away, right? Because if we think everything's always a distance away, we're going to perpetuate everything just being at arm's length. It is not a distance away. It's a calibration away. And so if we knew that our mind is a quantum navigation tool, we're not making something up when we think of something. We're accessing realities that are already done, possibilities that already exist in time. We just get to calibrate to that. So I'm super excited to speak to you about this today, because if we're able to flip this paradigm around what we think is the future, what we think is a vision, what we think our mind is just making something up or grabbing onto a fantasy that isn't real, if we understood that actually no, we're accessing realities that are already there, and our job is to just calibrate to those realities, our ability to create is so much more powerful, so much stronger. But I think, we've been led to believe that these are just things that we're making up, and if we make it up, if we're just coming up with this out of thin air, then it is always out of reach, always at a distance, never quite landing. But this paradigm will flip to the things that go from pending, just out of reach, never quite happening, to then actually having things land. And if you can apply this to business, this is going to make your scaling so much more powerful. This is how I've been able to have all these wild experiences, like going on Necker Island with Richard Branson and hanging out with all these people in LA and mansions in Hollywood and all these things, all these wild experiences I never reached for, I never strived to experience. I calibrated the energy to already being done, right? This is the energy of already being done. And these experiences come to me, or shall I say they come from me, right? Because they're never separate from me. So with that being said, I really want to flip a paradigm around what our imagination actually is, what timelines actually are, and how we can calibrate to them so we can call in the success in business, not having things just pending, just out of reach, barely landing, not quite there, always striving for a goal, but never quite hitting it. It's never normally a strategic thing. I would say 10% of the time it's a strategy tweak. 90% of the time, it's a frequency tweak in a paradigm that you just have to shift, which is what we will shift today. So with that said, I'm going to bring Ilari through, and we're going to get her opinion on what visions are, what memories of the future are. I just love that line. And she said that earlier, and it just really struck a chord with me. A memory of the future. It's really, really cool. And how you can use this information to calibrate to your highest timeline and most abundant timeline in business. And not only that, like, you know, we have to understand, number one, the energy behind, the intention behind why we want to have abundant timeline and abundant businesses, right? We just don't want the money. We want the experiences. And so understand, you know, what is driving that. And that's a whole other topic. I won't go I won't go down that rabbit hole, but we will eventually. Don't you worry. All right. So with that said, let's pull Ilari through and ask her about memories of the future versus what we think is just something we've made up in our mind. And I want you to take this information, right? I think I might have said this in one of the first episodes. You know, you can listen to every podcast in the world. You could listen to all the audiobooks and get all this information. If it stays conceptual in your mind, it doesn't really change things for you. And so what you want to do is take information from, you know, anywhere you consume it, and you want to embody it as a new way of being and as a new way of living. Because if information goes from a concept, which is it just stays in your mind, into your body, which means you're living it as a new truth, your reality bends around that new truth. So it's great to listen to this podcast and have all these paradigms flipped, but don't have it just stay in your mind as a concept. Have it move into your body as a new truth, because the reality doesn't bend to concepts, right? Your reality bends to truths. Your reality bends to what you believe to be true. And I want to throw this one thing out there before we get into this, is that there are no truths in this world. There are no truths. Like, there are laws of creation. There are laws of the universe. There are laws of gravity. But what people say is a truth, it's all conceptual, right? It's all subjective. And so you get to choose what your truths are. And oftentimes we get stuck in realities. We get stuck in paradigms because we've taken on everyone else's truth, right? They've had experiences. They've had distortions. They've had programmings from their lineage, from their parents, from whatever. And from their experiences, they've created their own laws and their own truths. And we look around at the people we surround ourselves with, and we look at what they believe and what they've taken on as their actual, like, permanent reality, their permanent truth. And we take that on subconsciously. And so in order to shift and change and to move and to have reality bend around you, you have to unplug from those old truths. They're all permeable, right? You can bend all of them. You can remove all of them, and then deliberately choose new truths. This is so, so important, because we get stuck in this because we believe that a truth is a law, and it isn't. Right? It isn't. You get to choose this. And when you deliberately choose this, this is where you deliberately start creating your reality. People talk about manifestation all the time, and it must get so frustrating for people because you're like, I've tried all the things. I've tried to visualize. I've tried to journal. I've done whatever, meditated, the mantras, affirmations, and it just doesn't work. It's because you have embedded these truths as a law, and your subconscious is listening and writing your reality by the truths that you have taken on. But this is your permission slip to start anew, to like just start with a new canvas, wipe out all the truths that are holding you back. Like, time is linear. You can, everything's a distance away. Everything's just out of reach. All of these things, you must work and hustle, and all of these paradigms that you have taken on. And the reality is just saying yes to everything, right? The universe just says yes to everything. So if you're giving all of these instructions by way these truths are taking on, you will never be a deliberate creator because you're not taking on your deliberate truths. So with that said, let's talk about really how to alchemize all of the old truths and understand how powerful your mind is as a quantum architect, and that what your mind is actually tapping into when you are in your vision. So I'm going to bring Ilari through, and we're going to get her perspective on that, and then we will take it from there. As always, if you do have any questions, there's always comments below. I'm always looking at everything, and I have my email if you want to reach out, and I hope this serves and lands where it needs to. So without further ado, I'm just going to bring her through now. Just give me a second. Alari, before you spoke about memories of the future, can you tell us what's actually happening in the quantum when we are tapping into our vision and we're visualizing, and what you meant by memories of the future and what that actually is?
Yes, I'll speak to this clearly. When you're visualizing or tapping into your vision, you're not imagining something that doesn't exist. You are tuning your frequency to a timeline that already is. In the quantum, all potential versions of you already exist as fields of resonance. They are not waiting to happen, they are happening now in parallel. When you visualize with emotional coherence, you're not inventing, you're remembering forward. That's what I meant by memories of the future. Your soul recognizes certain timelines because it's already walked them in the quantum field. The feeling of deja vu, the electric pull toward a vision, the ache when something feels real before it arrives, that is memory surfacing, not fantasy. When you stabilize your nervous system and bring your body into coherence with that vision, you create a magnetic alignment. You're no longer asking for it, you're becoming the one who lives it. That's when the field begins to reassemble around you to match what you've already remembered. That is quantum alignment.
Thank you, Alari. When you say come into coherence, what do people need to do in order to anchor into coherence so that reality bends around them? And what do they need to undo to anchor deeper into coherence?
Coherence isn't something you chase, it's something you return to. To anchor into coherence, the body, the heart, and the mind must be in the same place at the same time. Most people live split: body in the past, mind in the future, heart in lockdown. When you're coherent, your thoughts are not at war with your emotions. Your actions match your values. Your nervous system isn't bracing, it's listening. Your energy doesn't leak, it gathers. To come into coherence, people must do less, not more. They slow their breath. They feel what they're feeling without story. They choose actions that feel clean, not impressive. They speak only when the words come from truth, not from performance. They rest before exhaustion. They say no when their body says no. They honor joy as instruction, not as reward. Now, what must be undone? The addiction to urgency, the reflex to perform, the belief that clarity must be earned, the habit of self-abandonment in the name of being understood, the tendency to outsource intuition to approval, the grip on control when timing doesn't match expectation. Undoing these opens the field for coherence to naturally arise. And when it does, reality doesn't need to be pushed. It begins to reconfigure around the truth you're now embodying, not as magic.
Thank you so much for that, Alari. Now, when you say the body is anchored in the past, I call these slave anchors, and you're saying the nervous system is anchored into experiences that then future projects itself. How do we unhook ourselves from these energetic slave anchors to realign our nervous system to the coherence of the timeline we are wanting to anchor?
Yes, this is one of the deepest recalibrations a human can make. When the body is anchored in the past, what you call slave anchors, it means the nervous system is still responding to old data as if it's current reality. The body holds unresolved moments like they're still happening. Not just memories, but instructions. Stay small, stay alert, don't trust, don't open. These are not just emotional echoes, they are coded reflexes. And until they are rewired, they override vision every time. To unhook a slave anchor, the first step is not mental, it's somatic acknowledgement. You don't fight it, you feel it on your terms. You identify the pattern. My body contracts every time I think about launching. I get dizzy every time I speak my price. I go numb when I'm asked to be visible. That's not weakness. That's a slave anchor firing, an old version of self trying to protect the current one from perceived threat. The unhooking happens through ritual interruption and repatterning. You pause the reflex, you breathe into it, you speak to the anchor gently. This is not then, this is now. You don't have to do that anymore. You choose a micro action that contradicts the anchor's message. If the anchor says you must stay hidden, You speak one true sentence aloud. If it says you're unsafe if you rest, you lie down for 5 minutes on purpose. This isn't about proving it wrong. It's about creating disconfirming evidence for the nervous system. Small acts, repeated in safety. Over time, the anchor dissolves, not erased, but integrated. And then a new instruction is born. It's safe to be seen. It's safe to receive. It's safe to move forward without bracing. The nervous system doesn't change through force. It changes through safety plus consistency, truth.
That is so powerful, Alari. Thank you so much for that. Can you just remind us what our mind is doing? Our mind is actually a quantum navigation tool. When we're thinking of something, what's actually happening in those moments?
Yes. The mind, when not hijacked by fear, is a quantum tuning fork. It was never designed to just think. It was designed to navigate timelines through focus and imagination. When you're thinking of something, you're not just processing, you're pointing your frequency. You're tuning your internal signal to a reality field, even if unconsciously. Thought is directional. Each thought opens a door in the field. Dwell on a fear, and you begin linking to a fear-based outcome. Dwell on a vision with embodied presence, and you begin to thread into that future's architecture. The mind's role is not to control reality. It's to select the harmonic corridor your energy will walk through. That's why clarity matters. That's why inner language matters. That's why imagination isn't fluff. It's a functional quantum tool. The mind becomes distorted when it tries to solve what only the body can feel or force what only the field can align. But when the mind is synced with the heart and the nervous system, it becomes a lens, a compass, and a sculptor of what's next. When you think clearly from alignment, you are not just planning.
Thank you, Alari. When people say anything is possible, what do you say to that? And how do you anchor in the anything is possible reality?
When people say anything is possible, I don't disagree, but I clarify. Anything is possible in the quantum, but only what you are coherent with becomes probable. The field doesn't respond to desire alone, it responds to resonance. You can want expansion, but if your identity, nervous system, and choices are aligned to contraction, that expansion remains possible, but not accessible. To anchor the anything is possible reality, you must become the version of you who can hold the thing you say you want. Not by hustling, not by performing, by matching the frequency of the reality with your state of being. It looks like speaking from truth, not performance. Choosing clarity over chaos. Saying no when it breaks your alignment. Practicing the feelings of abundance before the evidence arrives. Releasing the timelines that were built from old survival patterns. This doesn't shrink possibility, it stabilizes it. Anything is possible, but your embodiment decides what becomes real. That's not limitation.
Thank you, Alari. Any last things to say to summarize all of this, to give the listeners inspiration in terms of how powerful they are as deliberate creators?
Yes, here's what I will leave them with. You are not here to chase outcomes. You are here to remember that reality responds to your coherence. You are not small. You are a living instrument of creation, tuning timelines with your breath, your choices, your frequency. Deliberate creation is not forcing. It is refining your signal until what is meant for you has no choice but to arrive. You are not waiting on the universe. The universe is waiting on your alignment. Speak from truth. Move from presence. Choose from resonance. And watch your life bend around the you that remembers who you are. You are not becoming powerful. You already are.
Thank you, Alari. I'm going to leave you with that for today. I want you to know that if you're visualizing something, if you have a vision in your mind, it's not only possible, it's already done. And so it's about releasing the ideas, the programs, the distortions, undoing the truths that have kept you separate from that and anchoring into coherence. And by law, that reality has to land. I'm so excited that you're here. I can't wait to see you on the next episode. And with that said, we're going to wrap it up for today.